Hi everyone. So this is the long-awaited review of the Daniel Hertz Amber Midnight speakers. We received the speakers about 5 weeks ago, I guess. We did an unboxing. Mike or Curtis will put the link in the description. Let me sort of just give a bit of background first. The speakers are 13,200 euro or approximately 14,670 US dollars, based on an exchange rate I found on the US on the website on the internet, I should say. The Amber Midnight was introduced March 2024, so this year, roughly 5 months ago. When you look at the speaker, you'll see it's just a single driver, but it's actually two. It's a 10-inch coax with a tweeter in the center. It's rated at 97 dB sensitivity, frequency response from 30 to 20 kilohertz, and the impedance is 8 ohms. The enclosure, the reason why they call it Amber Midnight, the previous version was using MDF, the regular cabinet material that most speakers use. The new one uses Perspex. The trade name is called Wave Glass. Mark Levinson says that it is 2.5 times denser than MDF, which is why they use it. And it's substantially more expensive than MDF. But the trade-off is that you don't have to paint it. It's hand finished, so it comes out beautifully in gloss or in white or a whole variety of other finishes that are available. When we first got our original Ambers, December of 2023, so 8 months ago or so, they arrived damaged. It was literally damaged. The speakers were rattling. Anyway, long story short, Mark was very kind. This was during the Christmas season, so there was no production. And of course, Daniel Hertz is a small company, so everything is still made to order. But he had a pair of prototypes, so he sent me those speakers. So at least I can get an idea of what they sound like. When we received them, he told me the design team were working on a new model, so don't do a review, but just listen to the Ambers and see what you think. So that's the reason why we never reviewed the speakers. Anyway, we got these about 5 weeks ago, and we did the unboxing, and of course immediately I plugged it in because I was excited to see what they sound like. First impressions, I was not happy. They didn't sound good at all. The bass was great, went all the way down to 30 hertz very comfortably, big, powerful bass. But from there on, there were issues. From approximately 200 hertz to about 500-600 hertz, there was a significant boost. Sounded very chesty, very heavy, colored and cupped. I thought, because I hadn't done measurements at that point, I thought it was just me being ultra sensitive to horns. As I've said in the past, for some reason, I'm particularly sensitive to horn characteristics, and in fact, in every horn speaker I've ever heard to date, I've always heard this sense of cuppiness, this sense of chestiness. Some people are not sensitive to it. I just, for some reason, am. And it also extends to some dual concentric speakers as well. So I thought that's what the case was, and I was getting very disheartened about it. Mark, of course, was all excited. What do you think? What do you think? And he was sending me text messages, calling me, and I was avoiding him because I didn't know what to say to him. I was very, very disappointed. Eventually, I spoke with him and I said, Mark, these are the issues I'm discovering. And he was perplexed and horrified because he couldn't understand why. These speakers have been very carefully designed, and by then I had done some preliminary measurements and found that sure enough, between 200 to 500 hertz, there was a big bump. He sent me a picture of his measurements, and they were basically flat, plus or minus 2 dB or so, from 50 or so hertz all the way up to 20,000 cycles. Anything really below 50 hertz is very difficult to measure in a room unless you measure it outside, and even with windowing and so on, it's not really accurate. All I can tell you is that bass is not an issue. So lots and lots of good bass. Anyway, I couldn't reconcile what he sent me as measurements versus my own. I promised him I would continue to experiment and so on, but I just got really, really busy. So the speakers got put to a side and left alone. All through this time, Mark was constantly following up. To his credit, Is there something I can do? It doesn't make sense. These speakers are being extremely well received all over the world. How is it possible that, there's such a gap? And one thing about Mark, he never ever said you're deaf. He never ever said you don't know what you're doing. He took my concerns very seriously. He was just trying to help. And I was at a loss. I didn't know what to do. With all false modesty aside, I've been doing this a long time. I've experienced all kinds of really wonderful products. I've also heard my share of very bad products. I know what good sound should be. Also, I'm intimately familiar with instruments, and Mike and Lewis are here, and they heard similar things as well. So it wasn't just me. Anyway, I spoke with Mark early this week, and I said to him, look, I've been so crazy busy, but I'm going to steal some time this week, and I'm going to try my best to see what I can do with the speakers and then report back. So last night, I told the guys, please hook everything up, and so that when I come in this morning, it's ready to go. Leave everything on so it's all warmed up and so on. I arrived at the store around 3:30, and I immediately started to listen to music. And sure enough, same issues. There was still that heaviness, that richness in the mid-range that just didn't sound right. And I was despondent. No other word for it. I was trying to think, how am I going to tell Mark that I don't like these speakers? There's something very awful about them. And it's not the room. We've tried the speakers in 2 different rooms, and every other speaker in the same setup sounds great. Over the years, we've learned what this room does. It's about roughly 18 by 20 or so, with a 20-foot ceiling and a fake acoustic tile ceiling at about 9 feet tall. The walls are treated, diffusers and so on, and it doesn't sound bright. It sounds actually quite good. And normally we've got speakers in this room where they're approximately 4.5 to 5 feet from the wall behind them, and they sound amazing, like literally amazing. We sold tons of wonderful systems to wonderful clients in this room because they sound so good. And here is an example where it sounds completely the opposite. So it never once occurred to me that it was a setup. And I'd moved the speakers back and forth to some degree, but that thickness always remained. So this morning I decided I'm just going to go back to first principles. I took out some masking tape and I taped the floor. I marked out a grid, just like how Wilson talks about doing it. And I started moving the speakers from where they are, or where they were, roughly about 4.5, 5 feet from the wall. And I started moving them closer and closer towards the front wall. Normally, in my experience, when you do that, when you move your speakers away from walls, they sound clearer. You lose some dynamics, but they sound clearer. And you tend to also get better imaging, and certainly depth sensation gets better as well. But as I started to move the speakers closer and closer to the wall behind them, they started to sound a bit better. Not dramatically, but better. So I kept doing it a couple of inches at a time. And then all of a sudden, it locked. It's like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Now, this is by now about an hour and a half into my experimentation. It blew my mind. It's everything just sounded right. It opened up, and I thought, no, this can't be right. So just to test, I moved the speakers back to position 1. And sure enough, everything that was unacceptable to me came back. And I thought, okay, let me move them back. And sure enough, amazing. And then I looked down on the floor, because we've got our floors marked with invisible tape. You can buy, by the way, a little hint, you can buy these invisible markers, invisible ink markers from Amazon. And with a black light, which comes with the pen, you can see on your floor where the markings are. So this way you don't get horrible marks all over your carpet or your floor. And I looked down with the invisible light, the black light, and I realized that I was in essentially the same position as where we normally put our Wilsons. I should clarify at this point. With our Wilsons, Wilson has a very specific setup protocol called the Wilson Audio Setup Procedure. And in this room, we've got that marked for Wilson speakers. Now, what works for Wilson doesn't always work for other speakers. And so over the years, we found other positions that work for other speakers. But for some reason, that position works incredibly well with these Amber Midnights. And I was not only relieved, I was ecstatic. I started playing my list of reference recordings, good recordings that I know well. And sure enough, everything just blossomed and bloomed and was amazing. After that, I thought, okay, well, let me try music that I love and care about. Not necessarily great recordings, just music I love and care about. And that's where it got truly exciting. I played a wide range of music from just electronic music to EDM to jazz, folk, rock, hard metal, even some reggae and some hip hop. And regardless, as the music kept me involved, the sound just drew me in, and I even purposely played some truly poor quality recordings, but good music that I love, to see whether or not it would continue to do that, and it did. I'll give you some examples. I haven't been looking at my notes, so I apologize. Okay, so here's a couple examples. Now, Mike, who's doing this recording, is behind the camera. He is a huge Rolling Stones fan. I can't say I'm as big a fan of Rolling Stones. I certainly like the music, but anytime I've played Rolling Stones on audiophile systems, it just loses the magic somehow. The recordings have been from decent to quite bad, and so I just never really got into it for some reason. Anyway, this morning I purposely played the Rolling Stones. As a matter of fact, I played it for Mike just now. Love in Vain. And for the first time, literally the first time in all these years of being an audiophile and a music lover, I was spellbound. Mick Jagger, right dead center. We've got Ry Cooder playing the mandolin. We have Keith Richards playing his acoustic guitar and his electric slide guitar. You have Charlie Watts all the way in the back playing drums. But more importantly, there was magic. Absolute magic. I've never experienced this before now. I'm telling you this. I have experienced and owned some incredible systems. I've never enjoyed Rolling Stones through an audiophile system. I enjoyed them through the car radio, but never through but with this system, I actually enjoyed this. It was goosebumps. It's just absolutely amazing. Here's another cut that I really enjoy. I've referenced it once or twice before. Gato Barbieri, Europa is the track. He plays the tenor saxophone. I've always loved this piece of music. He plays with such beauty and passion. It's not a great recording. It's all compressed. But when he hits the high notes and he wails and he soars, I'm in heaven. I just melt listening to the notes that he plays. It's just absolutely beautiful. A perennial favorite of mine, Saint-Saëns Symphony No. 3 with Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony Orchestra, recorded in the Symphony Hall. Not quite the second movement, but around about 10 minutes or so when the organ comes in, something started to tell me, turn it up, turn it up. So far I've been playing levels at, low to medium levels, and I turned it up. And suddenly the walls completely disappear. And the organ goes all the way down. Now remember, these are relatively small speakers with a 10-inch woofer, but I felt the rumbling of that organ note, almost 16 hertz, not quite, but certainly 20-ish, just go right through me. It was just the most magical experience I've felt in a very, very, very long time. Seasoned audiophiles, you know what I'm talking about. You can count on maybe one hand, if you're lucky, two hands, the times where you are absolutely blown away and there's magic in the air. Something happens. Maybe you're in the right frame of mind and the system is great and whatever it is. But for me, this is one of those magical moments. Just truly, absolutely outstanding. Arthur Fiedler, Boston Symphony Orchestra, doing Carmen, ballet for strings and percussion. Talk about dynamics, micro and macro. I listened to the entire album. I was so blown away. There are times where it's so dynamic. It's like a gun shooting. It shocks the hell out of me. Absolutely an incredible performance and moment through the system. It's a pretty decent recording, and that helps. But through this speaker, it was transcendental. I played multiple 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s and 2000s recordings. Mr. Tambourine Man, The Byrds, Mamas and Papas, Monday Monday, The Seekers. For those of you who don't know The Seekers are a great folk group, started in Australia, came to prominence in the 70s. I know these recordings because my siblings, who are much older than I am, would play them, and I got to really love the music. And when I listened to the words and I listened to the songs, again, they're not great recordings, but it made me want to be a socialist. The words were so meaningful and so full of idealism. And I just loved what I heard. The Hollies, Air That I Breathe. My God, this is a song that I could listen multiple times and never get sick of it. A side note, Eric Clapton had once said that the first note of this song has more soul in it than any other piece of music he's ever heard. This is Eric Clapton. And of course, He Ain't Heavy, another Hollies cut. Journey, for those of you who like Journey, I do. Open Arms. I have never heard Steve Perry sound so good. The ultimate make-out song. This is an incredible piece of music, so well written, so well sung. Steve Perry, at the top of his game, hits those high notes like nobody can. Just unbelievable. Again, those of you who know, this is not a great recording. It's just a pop / rock recording, but just truly amazing. Guns N' Roses, right? Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine. Grew up with this, and again, it brought me back all these wonderful memories of driving with the windows down in my 1977 horrible piece of crap car. Didn't care. Just music, air, wind in my ears. Just absolutely wonderful. Aretha Franklin doing Amazing Grace live. I've mentioned this once or twice before. For those of you who don't know, check it out. It's a truly phenomenal recording. Aretha Franklin at the top of her game. It's literally about 10 minutes. When I listened to this song, I was in tears because the meaning of the song is so amazing, and the backstory of how the song came to be written. I think his name is John Newton. He was a slave trader. And during one of his voyages, he was shipwrecked and he almost died. When he was rescued, he became a minister shortly afterwards. And then he wrote these lyrics. I once was lost and now I'm found. I was blind and now I see. Imagine these incredible lyrics put together with just an insanely good piece of music, and then having perhaps the best voice I know, the most soulful voice I've ever heard in my life, sing it with tenderness, with power, and with soul. That's the piece of music. And when I heard it through the Ember Midnights, I couldn't help myself. I bawled like a little kid. How do I explain what I heard? Can I reconcile it? I don't know. As I said earlier, traditionally, when you moved speakers from relatively close to the wall to away from the walls, in most cases, many of those things will improve. Bass will get clearer and you'll lose some maybe low frequency enhancement, but you'll get more clarity, you'll tend to get more linearity, you'll tend to get more openness, you'll lose some dynamics. But overall, that's what you generally hear, at least in my experience after 35, 36 years of doing this. In this case, it was the opposite. When I moved the speakers closer to the back, it just smoothened out. Now, there is some method to the madness where Wilson Audio's setup procedure is concerned. I won't go into it. I believe it's on Wilson's channel. You can watch it. David Wilson talks about it. But it's basically finding the zone of neutrality where voices are most neutral in your room. And perhaps that's what it is, because in that zone, these speakers sound very neutral. But more importantly, they are somehow able to evoke that magic that's in the recording, the genius of the performance. And so while these speakers will do all the audiophile stuff that we as audiophiles and enjoy and want to hear, they do something much, much, much more. They can communicate magic that is almost unique to them. As I said, can count on a couple of hands how many times I've been truly in the zone where magic was concerned. And this morning is one of them. They're truly very, very special. This is part one. The next time, if I get a chance, I'll do a follow-up where we're going to try different electronics. I used the Maria 350, which is a Daniel Hertz integrated amplifier designed by Mark Levinson with these speakers. So the next time around, we'll try a bunch of different electronics and then see what comes out of that. Mark tells me that these speakers are universal. They don't have to be used with Daniel Hertz, although you certainly can and perhaps should, but they're universal enough that you can try all kinds of electronics. So we'll do that. Anyway, thank you for watching this. I hope this has been interesting. If you get a chance, please go hear them. See what you think. I can't give these a higher recommendation than I am now. They are that good. Anyway, we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.